everybody. Uh, I just wanted to reach out to you and let you know that I have a special guest today. Um, the, the whole process behind talking and inviting this person to speak to you guys today was prompted by my need to find soap. And who better person to ask than a person who owns her own business. She owns Susan's Soaps and More, and she's a good longtime family friend of mine, and so I know that she's an expert in her field. So not only does she know all about soaps, but she makes her own. So the things that kind of prompted this were, I went to Walmart and it says, only one bottle only, and there was only one bottle of like hand soap left. And so what happened was I was a little bit panicked. I'm like, okay, well, if the hand soap supply runs out and I'm not able to wash my hands, how am I able to fight this virus, essentially? Because that's what they all talk about. Wash your hands, wash your hands. Oh, and make sure you wash your hands. So I was trying to figure out if washing my hands with any kind of soap would be helpful or would be better or worse than the normal hand soap that I buy. So bear with us. This is our first little interview that we're going to kind of put on and put together for you. So we're going to kind of start with the first question. We're going to start with the first question, which is, what are some of the, I guess, chemicals and ingredients that we're seeing on these soaps? What do they mean, first of all? We'll just kind of start there.
There's a lot of different chemicals that different manufacturers use to produce their product, but essentially what you're looking at is different variations of what's called surfactants that are basically soap in one form or another. And then they usually they're formulated usually with some type of foaming ingredient. Some of them have different kinds of moisturizing ingredients, which usually you'll see, or sometimes you will see the word glycerin or some variation of the word glycerin in the name of that ingredient. And then also, most of them have some kind of water in them, and then preservative. So, but there's, to go through even the three that we're talking about that you're going to show, you'll see it's a huge long list of ingredients. So, but that's essentially, there's, different chemical names, and sometimes it'll just be a slight variation because they've tweaked that particular ingredient or chemical or whatever just a little bit. So they can have a lot of variations, but that's essentially the basic makeup of all of them.
Okay. So do you want to look at a couple of those that we had kind of talked about?
Sure.
And share that?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen really quick. And all right. So if I can hit present, there we go. All right. So that is the last.
You go to the Suave one or not?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The Suave one had most of the ingredients in there are pretty much okay, except for the if you see the methylchlorosylzoline, which is in there, that is the preservative. And I went to a website that ranked the different ingredients, and basically, like, I guess 1 or 0 would be very safe or very gentle, not likely to cause any kind of irritation or problems. Well, this is a preservative and it's ranked as a 7, so, which it got a red mark on it. So it's definitely, I mean, it's not like it's illegal or anything, but it's actually been linked to according to some sites, lung toxicity, allergic reactions, and possible neurotoxicity. It's been banned in the EU for leave-on products such as skin creams. I mean, this is a wash-off product, and the US and the EU both have regulated the amount of the percentage of how much of this ingredient can be in that product. So I'm assuming that it's at the legal levels, but it's things like this that can cause skin irritation, skin rashes, and I mean, presumably worse conditions. But of course, you need preservatives if you're going to have a water-based product for sure, because bacteria and other things can grow in that. So, you know, it's not like you can just leave the preservative out. So that's not an option for them. But that's that if I was picking products, I would probably skip over this one because of the particular preservative that they choose to use.
Okay. All right, so let's go to the next one. This
Soft
is
soap,
the
right.
soft soap. That's what I
And
use.
this one's kind of the same situation. Everything in there was pretty much okay. I mean, that's got, if you want me to kind of run through, for example, the sodium lauryl sulfate. Now, that's not the same thing as sodium lauryl sulfate. That's why these get really confusing to look at, because it's a very similar word, and yet the sodium lauryl sulfate is the one that has been linked to possible cancer. This is sodium lauryl sulfate, which that's the surfactant. The overall solvent in the whole thing is the water. And then it's got an anesthetic, which is the acrylates copolymer. It has another surfactant, which is the cocamide toprol betaine. Fragrance, which anytime you see fragrance on a label, that's going to be a synthetic fragrance. It's not going to be a natural, like an essential oil, for example.
Okay.
It's got a pigment and sunscreen, which is what the titanium dioxide is. Then it's got glycol distearate, which is a emulsifier, viscosity control, sodium chloride viscosity control, which basically controls the thickness of the solution. Like when I make my liquid soaps or liquid shampoos, to thicken them, I will actually add salt into it. So that's basically what they're kind of doing.
Yeah.
Then it goes down to Laureth 4, which is another surfactant. And then it has the preservative, which is, in this case, DM hydantoin, which is a formaldehyde releaser. So what it does is when it is in the mixture, it actually causes formaldehyde to be created and be within the mixture, which then the formaldehyde acts as the preservative. It works to prevent, as I said, the growth of bacteria, fungi, and yeast in the product, but it can certainly cause allergic reactions. People can develop reactions to formaldehyde, or they could just be very sensitive to it, and so that can be a problem for people. So that was another one in terms of the list of ingredients that was kind of a red flag.
Okay. All right, and then the last one that we're going to talk about, looking at the labels, is going to be the Johnson & Johnson head to toe.
Right, and that one is probably the safest of the three, because it uses a different preservative, sodium benzoate, which actually is actually even used in food products. So it's it can still cause skin irritations, but it's not nearly as likely to cause problems as what was in the other two products. So, but again, it's, you know, it's basically got two different surfactants up at the top, and then glycerin, which is a humectant, which means it basically pulls moisture to your skin, so it acts as a moisturizer. That pentaerythrit, te, I can't even say it, tetrasterate, that's another emulsifier. Then it's got a solvent, PPG2, hydroxycocamide, has another surfactant, the sodium methyl cocoa turot. It's got citric acid, which is a pH adjuster, 2 different kinds of fragrances. It has another form of glycerin, which is another moisturizer, ethyl extrin glycerin. So I'm probably totally mangling the pronunciations of all these, but I
It's
mean,
not easy to pronounce.
no, but I mean, basically, they all have, as I said originally, they've got water as their overall base that everything is in, essentially, or it's certainly part of the mixture. And then they've got whatever surfactants or soaping ingredients that they've decided to use. And then different emulsifiers.
And can I stop you for a second? What do you mean by emulsifiers? That's a question that I'm not sure what that is.
An emulsion is when you have oil and water, like any kind of lotion is an emulsion. Or like if to put it into a food term, like really a mayonnaise or a gravy is probably kind of an emulsion. But basically, it's where you've taken, like think lotion, I guess, where you've taken water and oil and combined them together to make a liquid that's neither, really. So in my own product line, everything is all natural, and we don't do any emulsified products for that reason. There are some natural preservatives out there on the market, but years ago, when I started my business 20 years ago, they were very, very hard to find. They were very, very expensive. And so I had just made the decision not to use any emulsified products. So, for example, we make lotion bars that it's the solid moisturizer. We do body butter that's has the whipped butters and oils in it. So if you're just using just the oils, the bacteria can't grow in there. They could go rancid, but that's not really going to hurt you. It may not smell great, may not look great, but it's not going to have all that nasty stuff that can grow in it once you add water to the mixture. So all of these, they're actually, they're a liquid soap, and we make liquid soap, but it's not an emulsion product. So
okay, well,
help a little bit.
Then why don't you expand a little bit on that? What do you use with your liquid soaps, and what makes them a little bit different? I know you talked about you don't use the emulsion. Is there anything else that sets it apart from some of the products that we looked at?
Well, one of the other questions that somebody asked is kind of how do you know to be able to steer clear of something with harsh chemicals and more natural product? Not all chemicals are necessarily harsh. I mean, some of them can be perfectly okay for your skin. What we do in our liquid soap is basically it's base oils of rice bran and coconut and shea butter and a little bit of thinking we don't put cocoa butter in it typically, and then that is mixed with water, and then instead of sodium hydroxide that we use for the solid bars, we use a different lye solution for the liquid soap. And so basically it's the water and the lye mixed, and then the whole thing is cooked and it makes a paste, and then it's diluted with additional water. And then we do add glycerin to that, and then it's thickened with a saltwater solution. And then we don't use any synthetic fragrance.
Mhm.
we use essential oils, lavender, rosemary, lime, sage, things like that.
Okay. Okay. So that kind of leads into the next question that I had about essential oils. I'd recently done a little bit of digging, and I saw that some essential oils are good in soaps in general, and there are certain characteristics and things that they can do um, to the skin, and some were, I think, antiviral and some were antibacterial. So could you talk and explain a little bit about the essential oils that you use and what they do essentially?
Uh, well, I mean, the three primary ones that are kind of interest to everybody right now with the coronavirus is things that are antiviral, which the three that I would really suggest looking for is tea tree, which is not only antiviral, but antibacterial and antifungal, eucalyptus, and also peppermint. So all three of those are all antiviral. They all have multiple functions. Most of the essential oils have different um, actions, I guess. I mean, everybody's familiar with lavender being really relaxing. There's some of the essential oils that help as far as depression, for example. Geranium is one that's a really uplifting, emotionally uplifting essential oil that, with the way everything's going these days, that would probably be a great essential oil to have around some. Lemongrass is, I think, a lot of people really find that pleasing also. So there's, uh, I mean, Julia Lawless put out a book years ago that's kind of the Bible that I go by, or one of them, anyways. That it's called Encyclopedia of Essential Oils, and it's great. It has all kinds of information in terms of what plant the essential oil. I mean, that's the difference between something that's produced in a lab and an essential oil. Is an essential oil actually comes from some type of plant material, and typically not. It's usually always plant, almost always a plant material, but it's either distilled or expressed, and so it's actually from Mother Nature. And part of the reason why people started switching to synthetic fragrances is because with anything with Mother Nature, you can have a bad year with a bad harvest where the rains aren't there, or it's too much rain, or some other problem where that particular material is in short supply. And so the price can go up, and or maybe you just can't get as much as you want. So I'm sure at some point people started thinking, well, we'll just get around that problem. We'll just create a synthetic version of it. But unfortunately, we are natural products. We're from Mother Earth, basically. And so I feel like that the synthetic products, they can cause, much more likely to cause skin irritations. I'm sure you've heard of people having fragrance allergies. I see so many, and in fact, that's how I got started myself, is years ago after my son was born, I started having real issues with eczema. And I hear that from a lot of people, eczema, psoriasis. And I think part of that is certainly due to all the synthetic products that we put on our skin that we're surrounded by. There's synthetic fragrance in trash bags anymore. I mean, it's everywhere. So
Hmm.
um, I do want to caution though, just because something is all natural, like lavender, people can be allergic to lavender, or base oils. We use avocado oil in our lotion bars and our body butters. People can be allergic to that. So just because it's all natural does not necessarily mean that you can't have an allergic reaction to it. But I still think whatever you put on your skin, and or obviously eat or whatever, it goes all the way through your body. They've done tests where people will put like a little bit of essential oil in the palm of their hand, and a week later it's coming out in their urine. So it travels through your whole system. So
Mm.
you don't want to dismiss what you put on your skin as not that important. And the same thing, even smelling it. I mean, it's going to be going through your system. So I think that's part of why I feel like it's important to try to minimize the amount of synthetic products that you have in your life. I mean, you're probably not ever going to be able to get away from all of them, but any
Yeah.
steps you can take to go more natural, I think, can only help.
Yeah. No, that's great. And for those of you that are watching, we are going to have information about Susan's soaps. We're going to have a link to her website and her Facebook page so that you can reach out to her and interact with her. If you have any additional questions after we're done with the interview, for sure, feel free to reach out to her and use her as a resource for you. So one of my friends, she asked a little bit about, and you kind of addressed this a little bit, but I just want to make sure that we're answering the question. She had the question, does soap expire? So could you, I guess, talk a little bit to that question and just kind of briefly touch on it?
I don't really feel, particularly the bar soaps, for the most part, don't expire. Like I mentioned, they can go rancid. The liquid soaps, everything where I was reading is, for the most part, they probably have a shelf life of around 3 years or so. You may not know at what point you've got it. I just kind of a basic rule of thumb. If it doesn't smell good, it doesn't look good, I wouldn't use it. But as long as it
The
smells
same.
fine
Yeah.
and looks fine, you're probably going to be okay. So
Similar to how you, I guess, see if food is still good or not. If it's
right,
bad, it's probably bad.
yes, yes. If in doubt, I wouldn't use it. So
Okay. um, so we talked a little bit too about the natural soaps and the homemade soaps, kind of the differences there. And then we talked about if something is, one of my other friends was asking, is a moisturizing soap if is a less effective cleanser. So I wanted to kind of give you the floor on that
no,
question.
soap is soap. So I mean, as far as the coronavirus and just keeping clean and getting rid of germs and everything, as long as you wash thoroughly, which, to be honest, I kind of feel like a bar soap. Somebody asked, are what was it they said, are bar soaps really worse for you than liquid? I'm not sure why they would have thought that they were worse. I make bar soaps. I love bar soaps. I really think they may be a little bit better in terms of actually scrubbing, because that's what the WHO and the, what is it, CDC?
Yeah, CDC.
They talk about scrubbing like a surgeon would do, where you want to get it under your fingernails and really scrub. And I feel like a bar soap would probably be better at doing that maybe than liquid. But
Yeah.
you could have a harsh bar soap as well as a harsh liquid soap, or a gentle one of either one. So one thing I would like to mention is handmade soaps. When soap is made, part of the process in making at least bar soaps is glycerin is naturally produced in the soap as part of that process when you're making it by hand. But the commercial soap makers, that makes for a sticky product that it's very hard for it to go through their automated conveyor belt system as far as packaging and everything like that. So they tend to extract the glycerin from it and sell that as a byproduct. Whereas if you buy a bar of handmade soap, that's going to be in there. And glycerin, as you saw on some of the labels of the liquid soaps, they add it back in because it is a humectant, which is a moisturizer. It actually tracks moisture to your skin. So that's part of the reason why some people love handmade soaps so much, because they're much less drying on your skin than the typical bar of soap that you would get in a store.
Okay, cool. Let's see. I think we went over, did we talk all about, let's see, I guess the cleanest feel, but not the harsh chemicals? That was part of somebody else's question. I think we kind of touched on that a lot, just with you talking about, you know, you can be allergic to anything. So it really just depends on your skin type when it comes to how harsh or lack of harsh your skin is, you know, compared to something else.
Well, your skin type, but I mean, it definitely makes a difference in terms of ingredients. Like when we talked about those 3 soaps that we went through in the beginning, I think of those 3, I think, for example, the Johnson and Johnson, you would have the least possibility of an adverse reaction to it. So that's again part of why I have customers, or other soap makers have customers, that either like handmade soaps, or in my case, even handmade all natural soaps, because for one thing, if you get one of my soaps, you can pretty much usually read the label and understand most of it, and you know what you're getting in your product. So when you have a little bit less chance, I think, for the most part. Now, obviously, you can have soap makers that maybe they just don't know what they're doing, and they can make soap that's got too much lye in it, that where that could be irritating to your skin, or uh, you know, you you can have a bad situation on any product, I guess, is kind of what I was saying. But if
Mhm.
you find a soap maker that knows what they're doing, for the most part, I think you have a better chance of having fewer skin reactions, particularly like in our case, we make 2 completely unscented soaps that have no essential oil in them, because some people, they can't handle any kind of scent in their soap. So you kind of have to check around and see what works for you, but there are certainly guidelines that if you could get more familiar with the things that irritate your skin, you could even see, okay, I can't use that, or I don't want to use that because I don't like the way it makes me feel, or I don't like the possible other adverse reactions it could have. So it's not just your own personal skin type, it's also the actual ingredients that are used to make that product.
Okay, that makes a whole lot of sense when it comes to that. One of my other friends, who he actually owns a barbecue brisket place. He does his like he doesn't have a storefront, so you have to call him and you place an order. So an in-house brisket, and he was asking, you know, can you make soap smell like barbecue, you know? And I'm just thinking, well, he's probably just thinking, can you really make it smell like anything you want, is probably the bigger underlying question that he's asking.
Pretty much. I did actually Google, and there is, I mean, it came up, somebody makes a barbecue fragrance oil that says, you know, you can use it in lotions and soaps and candles, things like that. So there's a zillion fragrance oils that are out there on the market. But if you, just as I cautioned before, and, you know, everybody has to make their own choice. But if you see fragrance on the label, then it's almost a certainty that it's not going to be all natural, because if they're using essential oils, they should be putting that on the label. And soap is one of those things that if all it is just soap, it doesn't actually have to have all the ingredients listed on the label, like lotions and things like that. But if it makes any kind of claim as far as healing anything, or helping dry skin, or any kind of thing other than just it's a bar of soap, then it has to have all the ingredients listed on there. And I go ahead and list the ingredients anyways, just because you never know what people can be allergic to.
Oh,
So I think it's the right thing to do. But one of my little pet peeves is, or big pet peeve, is people that label their soaps all natural or natural, and you read the back label and it's got fragrance oils in it. So that that's not all natural. So
Yeah. Okay.
so read those labels.
So this kind of poses another unique question that I have for you. If someone wanted to order a barbecue scented or even bacon scented, I know a lot of guys like the smell of bacon. If they wanted to order something that was more unique or specialty, do you offer that kind of thing, or do you just strictly use your essential oils?
No, I don't do anything with any fragrance oils,
Okay.
but we are what you would call a small batch manufacturer. So uh, even just a half block pour is still 90 bars. Typically, we really prefer to go ahead and pour in full blocks, which is 180 bars. So
Unless you
I
find
have
180, then it's a no-go.
right. So they would need to want an awful lot of that soap, whatever it was. So if if they had a particular, and I have done that on occasion, but usually most people are, they're thinking in terms of 4 or 5 bars. So it
Right.
needs to be a bigger order than that.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. And then the last question, this will kind of be a good one to just wrap it up. And we've touched on it a little bit, but I just wanted to reiterate. There was someone in the McKinney Moms group that I'm a part of, and her question was, are all soaps made equal for the virus? And am I, because I am going to run out of the antibacterial, but I have plenty of just plain Dove. So if you could kind of touch on that.
Sure. I mean, soap is soap. So everything, I even looked up, somebody had asked something about maybe it was you, the antibacterial soaps. And the essential oils, some of the essential oils that we talked about, I was trying to find my note on that actual, here it is. They have what's antibacterial actions or antiviral actions, but a few years back, antibacterial soaps were all the thing, and I didn't ever do a official antibacterial soap because the actual active ingredient in that is usually triclosan or tricocarbon, and the FDA had actually done some studies. Triclosan and triocarbon have actually been banned by this point by the FDA. And they actually did studies showing that they did not really work any better than just regular soap in terms of washing off bacteria or germs off your skin. And of course, antibacterial stuff doesn't do anything as far as viruses. So, and there's not really a commercial anything that I've been able to find when I've been researching the last few days in terms of a commercial active ingredient that's antiviral. The only thing I've been able to find is the essential oils. And I'm not going to stand here and say that our peppermint tea tree soap that's got peppermint and tea tree essential oils is going to really per se protect you any better against the coronavirus, except in the terms of that I feel like anything you can do to improve your immune system is a good thing, and that both of those have actions in them that will help improve your immune system. So from that standpoint, I do feel like they are probably ramping up your defenses a little bit. But from the standpoint of simply washing off the virus and causing, because what it does when you wash with the soap or even with the alcohol, it actually destroys the outer little casing that's around that virus and causes it to, in essence, dissolve. And so your regular soap will work just as well doing that as an antibacterial soap will.
Good to know. So I don't think we're going to run out of soap anytime soon.
No, I mean, if you go to the store and there's no liquid soap and it doesn't have your favorite brand, I mean, go ahead and grab a bar, a Dial, or whatever's there, because any kind
Body
of soap,
wash. Yeah,
yeah,
body wash. Even some of the, I think we were talking about Some of the dish
dishwashing
soap.
detergent.
Yep. Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, if all that's there is, dishwashing detergent, go ahead and get that. I mean, as long as it's soap and you do a good job of washing your hands, that's really the most important part of it. So.
Okay. Well, thank you for doing this with me. This is our first experiment with this, just kind of talking about soaps and everything. So, and I'm glad that you're able to be a resource to not only myself, but to others that are worried or concerned about what's going on, and gave us a little bit of a soap lesson. So I'm excited to have you not only as a know you personally, just know you as, well, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Sorry.
Well, it's
I'm
been a
glad to know
pleasure.
you. I'm glad to have you as a friend. There you go.
It's been a pleasure being involved with you on this project. It's been fun to reconnect, and hopefully I was able to shed some light on some of the questions people had. And as you mentioned, feel free for them to reach out to me with any additional questions that may come up later on. So, but it is everybody. I mean, we hear it every single hour anymore on the news. I mean, it's scary, uncertain times for everybody, and I think everybody's a little bit nervous. So,
Yeah.
but the main thing is any kind of soap will help. Should help as far as destroying the virus on your hands. You just need to make sure you wash thoroughly, and you should be good.
Okay. Well, thank you, Susan. I appreciate it. And if you guys are watching this and you have questions, feel free to put those in the comments, and I'll have all the information about Susan Soaps and more in the either description box if you're watching this on YouTube, and if you're seeing it on Facebook, I'll have it located in the post. So, alrighty, bye.
Bye. Thanks, Rebecca.